Welcome to Conveyancing Matters with Lorraine and Stu. Join us for a chat about all things property.
Hi, Stu.
Hi, Lorraine. We're back again.
We are. We couldn't pass up the opportunity to use the balloons twice, really, Stu, for Conveyancing Matters' first birthday. And I rather like to think of us as being like the Queen. I like the idea that, well, 2 birthdays. So we can get 2 little birthday celebrations out of balloons and birthday banners. Given that we've been doing Conveyancing Matters for a year, a whole big fat year, which is extraordinary. I tell you what I don't want to do, and that's kind of get all of the thumbnails of all of the pictures that we've of us across the year, because you will just be like hairy or not hairy, and I'm sure I'm just getting fatter, which I'm not sure is necessarily going to be a good thing.
Oh, it's not the case, surely.
It definitely is. All I've done is sit in my office. But
COVID situation, isn't it? Welcome to my world. Jesus, yeah, that's why I have to sit like this, so you can't see the lower half.
Yeah. So Stu,
the laptop's resting on it.
Yeah. We've had some lovely guests on in the last year, and it's been really kind of them to support us as we've sort of kicked us off on the Conveyancing Matters journey. So I thought it would be really nice for us to just to have a brief chat about the other lovely guests we've had, and of course our very first guest was the absolutely lovely Duncan Samuel from Gazelle, and of course we both know Gazelle quite well, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think Duncan was our first ever guest, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
So he came on to talk about his proposition to the market, with reservation agreements and upfront packs and all that jazz. So that was really insightful, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I actually think, the reservation agreement issue, it's not going to go away. I mean, they're absolutely onto something in the sense that, it was very much on the government agenda, and then COVID hit. And I know that they've been working really hard, particularly sort of getting into the agents, because clearly the whole point of the reservation agreement really is for the seller and buyer to enter into it as early as possible. And what I have always liked about, Gazelle's proposition is the idea that, both parties are committed, but neither of them have to put down thousands and thousands of pounds, because essentially, they'll buy an insurance product. But what that does is tie in the seller and the buyer, because I think the traditional reservation agreement view that just the buyer puts down a percentage of the price is that's never going to take off unless it's mandated. I can't see it. And I do think that's why Gazelle ahead of the game. And it was just lovely to talk to Duncan and to talk to him about that, because I think he's often been ahead of the market, really. He was doing, prop tech-led conveyancing before people were doing, prop tech-led conveyancing, really.
Very much so.
But and are we do we think we're going to get to, is there going to be an actual ESTAS do this year? Do we think we're going to get to go?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, as far as I know, it's all still on.
Oh, good. Is anyone going to invite me?
Might have a spare place on our table.
Excellent, because I was
going for a list of people. Yeah, I'm going for a list of people that might be worthy. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I'm expecting an invite, and I think I'm pretty sure Gazelle will be going to that too. So it will be really nice to see people in the flesh for a change. But and of course, well, we've already mentioned the lovely Mike Day in our earlier first birthday chat. But of course, Mike's interesting. Really, we mentioned it because of his man cave that you covered. But of course, Mike's interesting because he's just been involved, sort of steeped in the agency and property market for such a long time. And he's a man that, he knows a lot about the market, really, doesn't he, Stu?
That's right. Yeah, I think he gave an insight in terms of from an estate agent's perspective and the money laundering regulations that they have to abide by, which I think there's a few firms have fallen foul of in the last few weeks as well. So it was a really interesting chat to see, what estate agents have to actually do and comply with as well as ourselves.
Yeah, well, I think it's a side of the sort of property market that I think conveyancers and to some degree clients don't and I think frankly I have to say a lot of estate agents don't realise the extent of the duties on estate agents as far as money laundering is concerned. I think everybody thinks money laundering is the property lawyer's problem, And actually that's, and maybe to a large extent it is because the buck stops with us because the money goes through our accounts. But, you know, there are other gatekeepers who should be doing their job.
I was quite surprised at the level of due diligence that the estate agent has to go to. I thought it might just literally be collating a couple of bits of ID and that would be the case. So I have to admit, I learned a bit that day because it was far more robust than I thought it would. I thought we would be the robust side of it, and the estate agents might simply be sort of data collecting, but it was definitely a bit more than that.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is though, Stu, and I certainly see this from with my sort of locum hat on, and I guess, you know, Mike's world is the same, because obviously Mike, you know, a mainstay of what he does now is his training, and a lot of that is AML training, which I have to say, I think we said at the time would be you know, extremely useful for property lawyers to attend. His, you know, his training isn't just, you know, agency focused, but I think lots of agents don't realize the extent of their duties, and some of them will do it incredibly well, and lots of them won't. But of course, you know, I see that to some degree on my side of the fence, because some firms are absolutely all over, you know, the money laundering, source of funds and source of wealth, and a lot of them are just like, you know, all right, don't.
So it's a good qualification of how serious somebody is in terms of being a buyer, isn't it, as well? So it must serve a dual purpose from the estate agent's point of view.
Yeah, no, I think so. And Sean Spalding, I loved Sean. I think he's changed jobs actually since we saw him.
Oh, really?
But what I loved about Sean was his sort of embracing of technology to sort of assist, because he was obviously more on the accountancy side, and I suppose in many ways you can always see why. You know, the tech would support the accountancy side, but I love the fact that he was so evangelical about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, he certainly knew his stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, in a way that, frankly, you know, as we know, lots of property lawyers aren't. So I think we ought to, you know, we ought to follow up with Sean and see what he's up to, really. And of course, Morris, lovely Morris Kilbride. I came across Morris on Twitter first, and I think sort of slightly only realised, you know, what a following he had, and, you know, what a guru he is, sort of after the event and after I'd sort of, you know, burst and pushed myself into his Twitter feed, really. But I really do, you know, I love Morris a lot. I think he says talks a lot of sense, and talks a lot of football on Twitter, Stu.
I know, I've noticed.
But apart from, you know, running in many ways what I think people might sort of see as a traditional agency, as in high street. But, you know, he clearly does it incredibly well, and of course he's so, you know, he's got his family involved, and I think you know, that's a really big deal for him, I think. Yeah,
there's a lot of synergy there, because we're a family run practice here. And exactly. Of course, he was the same.
Is that in the PCS legal memorandum and articles of association, Stu? Does every third employee have to have Forsyth as their surname?
Most definitely not the dodgy surname like that. No.
They have to. The fewer the number of people with Forsyth, the better. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
And then, of course, we can't talk about our guests without mentioning the inimitable and irrepressible. And frankly, I love him.
I think I know who you're going to say.
Yeah, I love him, Russell Quirk, because he's. I'm fascinated by Russell, because you've known of him for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I must have known of Russell sort of in and around Essex from his early days in the estate agency to where he is now. Must be 20 years, maybe more, 25 years possibly.
Yeah.
So I can remember when he opened up Quirk Deacon Estate Agents in Basildon Town Centre, and all the PR that went with it, and business cards fluttering around just like the confetti and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
All that kind of stuff. So I remember Russell's sort of grand entrance into the town, and that probably sums Russell up, doesn't it? Grand entrance into whatever he does.
Yeah, no, I think what's interesting about Russell, he's they fairly recently you know, rebranded the name to Proper PR, which I really like, because it's got that kind of property vibe. And it's proper PR, and at the end of the day, you know, he's his own best advert, isn't he? Because he's very good. He's very good at the PR. But also, I think what's interesting about Russell is he's prepared to take on the all-comers and say, yeah, look, I did something, and, you know, it didn't go quite to plan. But also he does have, you know, an extremely insightful sort of view on the property market. And frankly, I've got to say, from what I've seen, a lot of his analysis is, pretty much bang on, I've got to say. It's
I mean, look, Russell can often be a bit Marmite in people's opinions on him. But at the end of the day, he's been there, done it, got the T-shirt, hasn't he? Whatever way you look at it,
he quite literally has got the T-shirt.
I think he actually did have the T-shirt.
He did have the T-shirt. I'm not sure, actually, Stu. Do you remember? You might not remember this in a way that a woman of a certain age might. But did Russell's nipples appear on the underneath the T-shirt? Did we get to see? Was it tight enough?
You're quite right. That's the sort of thing a man wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I think that is actually, in Conveyancing Matters terms, maybe that's the equivalent of the boys' man caves. Maybe it's Russell Quirk's nipples under his PR T-shirt.
Sorry for Russell now. He's only wearing his PR T-shirt, blimey.
Well, and I noticed. I think he ought to be flattered, quite frankly, mate. But we actually, for viewers who might be interested, we kept back another video of Russell expressing opinions that we really couldn't put out without running the risk of being sued. So we sort of did we've done a bit of a sort of comedy, a comedy chat with Russell, and sort of we bleeped out everything that we can't possibly publish, and maybe we should put that video out in the next couple of weeks too. What do you think?
Most definitely. I think people would be interested to see what he's got to say for himself.
I think they would. We could perhaps have a fill in the blanks competition.
Very good. Yeah, could do.
What did Russell say here? I like that idea. I've amused myself with that idea. I have all my best ideas when I'm not trying to have any.
Yeah, but whatever you say, Russell's an interesting character, isn't he? Whatever way you look at it, he's an interesting character. He's got a wealth of knowledge within the industry, from the PR side of it through to an online estate agency, traditional estate agency. He's done a lot, hasn't he? I
think that's what's interesting about Russell, because he actually does have he has the sort of knowledge and the stats, to base to base everything on. So he can actually sort of squash people with facts if he needs to, which I think
he's still doing it now. He's still working in the estate agency now, and a totally different kind of model, probably a third variant of it also.
Exactly. I'd like to get Russell back, actually, to see how proper PR's going, and to get his sort of view on the market in the next 12 months, because I think we now need Stu to start looking ahead, really.
Definitely.
I certainly want to get the lovely Hound of Holborn on, Charlie Davidson. I love him. He's a bright, lovely property lawyer, and he's got a great LinkedIn following, and I had a few drinks with him a few weeks ago when I was in London, and that was lots of fun. So I'd really, really like to get Charlie on. So hopefully he'll come and chat to us. And I say I'd definitely like to get Russell back. So, but maybe to sort of conclude our birthday chat, Stu, let's finish on a positive. It's been the hardest year for conveyancers that we have ever known. So in the last 12 months since we've been on air. So what do we think is the really, what's a big positive to come out of the last 12 months?
The positive is that we've got through it. Okay, we got through it. We're past the deadlines. We're not far off being past the 30th of September. And I think the biggest thing of all is we can start to look forward rather than look back and worry about what's happening. I think now the time is to look forward, and hopefully firms have adopted different processes, a slicker way of working. And of course, the biggest things come from the last 12 months is obviously Conveyancing Matters. Yeah,
actually, I agree. I mean, I've done, lots of really interesting work, started to work with some really, really, lovely people. I'm very grateful for the fact that I'm freelance and I can do what I choose, albeit, I work very hard to do it. But I can honestly say that Conveyancing Matters for me is one of the best things to come out of the last 12 months. I think we have found a voice and a corner of the market that nobody else is in, which I think is interesting. And I think the way that conveyancers have reacted to us has been extraordinary, really. And it kind of, and you've said this all along, but, people have never really spoken up for and about conveyancers from the perspective of doing it. And I think that's the thing. We can see the failings, but also we know how extraordinarily hard it is. And if anybody has felt a bit supported by what we've done and kind of listened to us on a miserable Wednesday in the middle of furlough or in the middle of a 17-hour day and got a bit of amusement or pleasure or information out of what we've said, then to my mind, that's a really good thing.
Yeah,
so,
I think that there's not many people out there within our industry, certainly, that are prepared to stick up for what we do. There are individual people, individual firms that will look after their firm's interests, but we want to make it clear that this is we're completely independent of any practice, whether it be PCS or adapt law. We're doing this purely to have a voice, or to try and be the voice of conveyancers. And if anybody ever sort of wanted us to discuss any particular subject matters, we'd be all ears to bringing those up. We are a voice, and it's about time, I think, with the amount of abuse that property lawyers have had, probably not just in the last 18 months, but before that as well, from various different areas of the industry, whether that be from estate agents or whatever. I think it's about time we sort of stood up and actually sold ourselves and told everyone what a difficult job we do and what a good job we do. And at the end of the day, we are protecting our clients' interests in buying that property. We're not a barrier to buying it. We're protecting them.
I also think, I found this for a long time, actually, that for reasons best known to, those that have this view, and you're right about, it's not just been the last 12 months, conveyancing has often been seen as the sort of, the intellectually inferior legal job. And, I've experienced a lot of, frankly, nonsense and snobbery in law firms over the years about, the property department. And the one thing I would remind people is that, conveyance is extremely high risk, difficult work. It's very, very stressful work. And the reason that most firms do it and continue to do it is because ours are the departments that get the fees in regularly and on time. Our average transaction might be only, 2 to 4 months. We're a regular turnover of cash flow, and it's often the conveyancing fees at the end of month on a multidisciplinary firm, Stu, that pay the VAT bill and pay the salaries every month. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. And I certainly want to sort of, I think we need to, carry on beating that drum, I have to say, but hopefully also, bringing some value and talking about other points of interest to conveyancers, I must say. So I think onwards and upwards for conveyancing matters, Stu, and
the industry, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. And maybe different balloons and different banners this time next year, mate. And cake. I must do cake next year. I'm
Get
really
one delivered.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed we didn't do cake.
Oh.
Anyway, love. Well, happy birthday.
Yep, you too.
And I'll see you really soon.
Speak soon.
Take care.